Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're opening a stack of sources focused on something really intense: divorce.
But not just any divorce. We're looking specifically at what's often called gray divorce.
Right. That's divorce happening later in life, usually for folks over 50, often after, decades of marriage, 20, 30, even 40 years.
Exactly. And the trend here isn't just a small shift. Well, the data shows it's more like a shockwave hitting midlife.
It really is. The numbers are pretty staggering when you look at them. I mean, divorce rates for younger people have actually been slowly going down since the 80s.
But for the 50-plus crowd, it's the opposite story.
Completely. The rate for couples aged 50 and older actually doubled between 1990 and 2010. Doubled.
And get this, the only age group in the U.S. where divorce rates are still consistently climbing. It's people over 65.
Think about that. Almost 1 out of every 3 people getting divorced right now in the U.S. is over 50.
It's a huge demographic reality.
Yeah.
And this kind of late life split, it brings a whole different set of challenges, especially for men, we're finding.
Yeah. Complex financial stuff, deep emotional isolation sometimes, and this real shattering of identity.
It's often described as the second most stressful life event, right after the death of a loved one.
Absolutely. So, our mission today in this deep dive is really to give you a kind of shortcut through this landscape.
We need to unpack why this transition, moving from we back to me after so long, is particularly tough for men over 50.
Look at the causes behind the split, and maybe most importantly, lay out a clear, actionable blueprint, a way to rebuild, redefine your identity, secure your future.
Because handling this level of stress, it takes wisdom, not just gritting your teeth and pushing through.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. Why are these long-term marriages dissolving now after decades? What's driving it?
Well, our sources are pretty clear. For older couples, the reasons, the flashpoints, they really shift. It's less about the kinds of things younger couples might fight over.
Like disagreements about raising young kids,
Yeah.
incompatible parenting styles.
Exactly. That stuff fades. It becomes more about deeper, more fundamental disconnects in the relationship itself.
And you can't really talk about this without looking at the generation involved, right? We're mostly talking baby boomers here.
Statistically, those born between 46 and 64, they just have higher divorce rates than generations before or after them. They sort of normalize divorce earlier in life.
And that pattern is continuing as they age. It's a generation that often really prioritizes personal fulfillment.
That's a big part of it. And that attitude gets amplified by probably the biggest factor overall. We're living longer, much longer.
Yeah, longevity changes the calculation entirely.
It really does. When you hit, say, 55 or 60,
Mm-hmm.
and you realize you might easily have another 25, 30 years,
Yeah.
maybe more.
You start thinking about the quality of those remaining years.
Precisely. It forces this confrontation. People look ahead, and our sources say women initiate the majority of these great divorces, and they ask themselves,
Do I really want to spend the next few decades like this in a marriage that feels stagnant or maybe even bad?
yeah, I still have a life to live, is a common feeling described. It becomes less about sticking it out and more about proactively choosing a different future.
The expectation of marriage itself has shifted too, hasn't it? It's not just about duty or stability anymore.
Not for many people. It's about overall happiness, fulfillment, partnership.
Yeah.
If that's missing, and you feel you have decades left, well, the incentive to stay weakens dramatically.
Okay, so that's the big picture, the macro view. What about the specific relationship failures? What comes up again and again in the sources?
The number one reason cited, simply growing apart. Aging brings huge personal changes. Your priorities shift, your health changes, your needs evolve.
And if the couple doesn't grow together through that
Right.
or make space for those individual changes,
The gap just becomes too wide. And the moment that really throws this disconnect into sharp focus, it's often the empty nest.
yes. The kids finally launch, they move out, and the couple is left looking at each other over the breakfast table.
And sometimes realizing they don't have much to say. Or maybe they become strangers.
The kids were the main focus, the main project for so long.
They really were. The source of shared activities, the topic of conversation, maybe even the source of shared conflict that kept them engaged. They were the relational glue, as some experts call it.
And when that glue dissolves,
The couple might find they have very little in common outside of those parenting roles. No shared interests, maybe different values emerging, no shared purpose anymore.
so they start looking elsewhere for that connection, for fulfillment, which can lead straight to separation.
It's that tough realization. Maybe we were great parents together, but maybe not great life partners for the next chapter.
But it's not always just growing apart, is it? Infidelity still happens.
Oh, absolutely. Cheating is still a major catalyst.
Hmm.
But what's interesting in gray divorce is how it's often described. It's not just betrayal, it's a bitter betrayal.
Why bitter? Because of the history.
Exactly. When trust is shattered after decades of shared life, shared memories, raising a family, the depth of the wound is immense. It feels like the whole shared past is tainted.
Makes it almost impossible to rebuild trust at that stage.
For many, yes. The deception just feels unforgivable after investing so much time and life together.
Okay, let's shift to finances. Always a huge stress in any divorce, but near retirement, it must be amplified.
Exponentially. It goes from arguments about, credit card bills or spending habits to fundamental fears about future survival.
Every dollar counts when you're looking at leaving the workforce.
Right. Suddenly, the arguments are laser focused on dividing assets accumulated over a lifetime. How do we split the pension? What's the house really worth? Who gets which part of the retirement savings?
And our sources mention something called financial infidelity, hiding money, debts.
Yes. And that hits older couples particularly hard. Discovering hidden debt or secret accounts just demolishes trust right when you need stability the most.
Plus, actually dividing things like 401ks and pensions, that's legally complicated, right?
Very. You often need specific legal orders, like a QDRO, a qualified domestic relations order, to split those retirement funds correctly without triggering huge tax penalties.
And the outcome is often less than ideal for both parties.
Usually, yes. Both people often end up with significantly less than they'd planned for in their shared retirement vision. And the brutal reality for people over 50 is there's just less time to financially recover from that setback.
Which must add even more pressure, maybe even speed up the decision to split just to secure whatever they can individually.
It definitely intensifies the anxiety
Right.
and can accelerate the process, yes. Everyone's trying to lock down their own financial future.
Okay, so those are some of the major drivers from a relational and financial perspective. But let's drill down into segment 2 now. The reasons men, specifically, often initiate these late-life divorces and the identity crisis that often follows.
This is really interesting stuff, often coming from mediators who hear these stories directly. It reveals a kind of deep internal struggle that might not be obvious from the outside.
It challenges the stereotype of the man just, walking away carefree.
Absolutely. These men are often grappling with a really severe crisis of self-worth, even if they seem successful externally.
So the first reason our sources identify is this feeling of being bored to tears, irretrievably numb.
It sounds almost trivial, bored, but it's described as a truly devastating internal state. Imagine spending decades fulfilling roles, the provider, the manager, the husband, the dad.
And losing yourself somewhere along the way.
Exactly. They describe feeling completely drained of the spark, just numb. Life feels flat, predictable, empty of real excitement or joy.
And the marriage becomes part of that monotony.
It feels like the primary symbol or maybe the cage of that monotony. It's routine, it's functional, maybe companionable, but the passion, the vitality, gone. It feels like an extension of their internal deadness.
So they're not trying to escape conflict necessarily, but escaping this emotional flatline.
Precisely. They're deeply unhappy with the whole structure of their lives and feel like the only way to find that spark again, that mojo, as one source put it.
It's to burn the whole thing down.
Metaphorically, yes, to
Yeah.
completely change the circumstances. And what's really sad and quite common, according to the research, is how they sometimes engineer that exit.
You mentioned it's often non-confrontational, almost passive.
Yes, many of these men, they're not bad guys. They might be conflict averse. They don't want to inflict the pain of saying, I'm leaving you because I'm profoundly bored. It feels cruel.
So what happens?
So they might seek out external validation, find someone else who does provide that missing spark, that excitement, and then, often subconsciously, the act of getting caught.
Becomes the exit strategy.
It becomes this devastating but non-confrontational signal. The marriage is over. It avoids the direct, painful conversation, but causes immense hurt nonetheless. It's like a coded message, I'm out.
Wow. That ties directly into the second major motivation you mentioned, feeling unappreciated or used.
Right. This taps into a really key, often gendered difference in how emotional support works in many long-term traditional marriages.
How so?
Men, often conditioned not to show vulnerability or seek broad emotional support, frequently rely almost exclusively on their wives for validation, for appreciation, for love, for feeling seen.
She's the primary, maybe the only source of that affirmation.
Exactly. But what if the wife is consumed with her own career, finishing raising kids, managing the household, dealing with aging parents, or just focused on her own needs and friendships.
That validation stream dries up.
And the man starts to feel invisible, ignored. They use phrases like feeling like a piece of furniture,
Yeah.
or in the way, or just there.
Like their presence doesn't really matter.
They might try to contribute, offer help, maybe try to connect emotionally, but if those efforts are met with criticism, indifference, or just busyness, they start to withdraw. That lack of appreciation becomes a constant aching wound.
And the feeling of being used, that's when it really tips over.
Yes. The sources say this becomes particularly acute when the man feels his primary value to the family is his paycheck.
His money is welcome, needed, spent.
But he, the person, the partner, feels dismissed or taken for granted. That sense of being treated like an ATM machine, essentially, creates deep resentment and can absolutely push him towards a divorce, seeking someone who values him, not just his wallet.
That feeling of just being worn down, unappreciated, it leads right into the third motivation, simply wanting peace, seeking simplicity, escaping the chaos.
Yeah, for some men, especially midlife, the sheer complexity of family life just feels overwhelming. It runs at a higher RPM, as one source put it.
Constant demands, noise, schedules, maybe dealing with adult children's problems, aging parents' needs.
Right. The household feels like a nonstop engine of demands and low-grade chaos.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like a sanctuary anymore. It feels like another source of stress.
So the response is to just check out, withdraw.
The desire becomes intense. Just leave me alone. To pull back completely. This often manifests as emotional desertion long before any legal steps are taken. They crave the quiet, the predictability, the lower RPM of single life.
Believing escape is the only path back to some kind of mental peace.
Exactly. So whether the man initiates actively or sort of passively through neglect or an affair, the end result is the same. The marriage dissolves, and he's suddenly facing this massive post-divorce identity crisis.
And this is the huge, often silent struggle for men after a gray divorce.
It really is. For decades, maybe his whole adult life, his identity, his purpose, his self-worth, were all tangled up in being a husband, a provider, maybe a father.
And when the marriage ends, that entire framework just collapses.
He doesn't just lose a partner. He feels like he loses himself. He's left staring into this void asking, okay, who am I now? Without this relationship, what's my value? What's my purpose?
And that emptiness, that loss of identity can be made even worse if kids are still part of the picture, right? The custody challenge.
Absolutely. Even if the kids are adults, the dynamics shift dramatically. And if minors are involved, while laws aim for fairness, sometimes societal biases or established routines mean mothers often retain primary residence or become the main emotional hub for adult children.
Leaving dads feeling pushed to the margins.
Feeling marginalized, struggling to maintain the same level of connection, feeling like they're missing out on the day-to-day lives or big moments, it just compounds that sense of loss, and feeling like their core role as father has been diminished.
It adds salt to that identity wound.
Definitely. So the divorce decree might be final, but the internal trauma, this identity crisis, is often just beginning. Which brings us to the next critical piece. The emotional recovery, the silent struggle.
Right. Segment 3. And this is so important because, as you said, the healing path often looks different and can be harder for men.
It's often steeper, yeah, largely due to cultural expectations and conditioning. Divorce is traumatic for everyone involved, but men face these unique hurdles that often go unrecognized, or worse, are actively suppressed.
And it starts with that pressure to be tough, right? The stigma of suppression.
Exactly. Be strong, man up, push through it, get back on the horse. Men are culturally conditioned to appear resilient, unemotional, to handle loss by just moving on quickly.
Vulnerability is framed as weakness.
Which has a really dangerous consequence.
Yeah.
Men often end up skipping the grieving process. They don't allow themselves to actually feel and process the enormity of the loss of the shared past, the imagined future, the companionship, the identity.
So where do those feelings go? The anger, the sadness, the resentment, maybe even shame?
They get bottled up, stuffed down.
Yeah.
And that suppressed grief doesn't just vanish, it festers.
And comes out in other ways.
Yes. It can manifest as chronic irritability, anxiety, explosive anger, or, very commonly, it can slide into serious post-divorce depression, deep hopelessness.
But the very stigma that causes the suppression also prevents them from seeking help.
It's a vicious cycle. The fear of appearing weak, of admitting they're not coping, stops many men from reaching out for professional help or even talking honestly with friends. Seeking therapy can feel like admitting failure.
And that difficulty accessing emotional support gets compounded by what you call the isolation trap.
This is a major issue for older men post-divorce.
Hmm.
Think about it. In many long-term marriages, the wife often managed the social calendar.
She organized the dinners, kept in touch with other couples, sent the birthday cards.
Right, she was the social architect. And critically, she was often the man's primary, sometimes only emotional confidant, the person he talked to about stress, fears, feelings.
So when the marriage ends, poof, that main support line is just gone.
Completely severed. He loses his primary connection, which leads to this profound loneliness and emotional isolation. And unlike women, who often maintain wider, more intimate friendship networks, older men frequently have smaller circles.
Maybe they let friendships lapse over the years due to work, family focus.
Very common. So they find themselves suddenly alone and, frankly, often lacking the skills or confidence to build new, meaningful connections from scratch in midlife.
So you've got this deep emotional wound and no social first aid kit readily available.
That's a good way to put it. And this loneliness isn't just sad. For this age group, it's a serious physical health risk.
How so?
Well, study after study links chronic social isolation in older adults to significantly higher rates of serious health problems. We're talking increased risk of heart disease, hypertension, stroke, cognitive decline, even certain types of cancer. The chronic stress of the divorce and the isolation takes a heavy physical toll.
That would explain the statistics showing higher mortality rates for divorced men compared to married men.
It's stark evidence of that mind-body connection. And the physical decline is often made worse by unhealthy coping mechanisms.
Trying to numb the pain.
Exactly. To cope with the crushing loneliness, the anxiety about the future, the grief, many men turn to self-medication. That often means drinking more heavily, sometimes turning to prescription or illicit drugs, maybe picking up smoking again after years.
Which feels like a solution in the moment, but
But it's a trap. Substance abuse only deepens the isolation, damages physical health further, and makes true emotional recovery much, much harder. It can easily spiral into addiction.
it really underscores why having a structured approach to rebuilding is so vital. It's not just about feeling better, it's about survival and long-term well-being.
Which brings us right to the core of this deep dive, the rebuilding blueprint, moving from crisis to opportunity.
Okay, segment 4. This is where we shift gears. Acknowledge the pain, yes, but focus on leveraging this moment, using the wisdom you've gained over decades, not as an end, but as a new beginning.
Absolutely. It's not about starting from zero. You're starting fresh, but with a foundation of experience, maturity, perspective. The key is channeling that into rebuilding. Phase 1 is all about laying that crucial emotional and mental foundation.
And step 1 has to be actually allow yourself to grieve. You can't skip this. Acknowledge the loss, the spouse, the shared life, the identity you had.
Permission is key. Give yourself permission to feel all of it, the anger, the sadness, the confusion, maybe even relief sometimes. Be patient. Healing isn't a straight line. It's messy. It comes in waves.
Don't judge the feelings, just let them be processed. You mentioned journaling earlier.
Journaling can be incredibly helpful. It's a private space to dump all those raw thoughts and feelings you might not feel comfortable saying out loud. Get it out of your head and onto paper. Don't rush this stage.
And critically important, especially given the stigma we discussed, do not try to tough this out alone. Don't try to set your own broken heart.
Please don't. If you're feeling persistently hopeless, if your sleep or appetite is totally disrupted for weeks, if you just have no energy or motivation, that's beyond normal grief. That could be depression.
And seeking professional help is a sign of strength, not weakness.
Absolutely. Find a therapist, a counselor, maybe even a psychiatrist who specializes in divorce, grief, or midlife transitions. They have the tools and perspective to help you navigate this. Think of it like hiring a specialist for a complex problem. You wouldn't try to rewire your house after a major electrical fault, would you?
Good analogy. And phase 1 also involves prioritizing basic self-care, which probably went out the window during the stress of the separation.
It had to become non-negotiable. Your physical health has taken a beating from the stress. So focus on the fundamentals. Sleep, try to get consistent, sufficient rest.
Nutrition matters too, right? Not just grabbing whatever's easy.
Definitely. Aim for a balanced diet. Some sources even specifically mention omega-3 fatty acids found in things like salmon, walnuts, flaxseed, as being helpful for mood regulation and combating stress and inflammation during times like these.
And movement. Exercise.
Vital. Doesn't have to be extreme, just regular movement. Walking, swimming, joining a gym, trying yoga. Exercise releases endorphins, which are natural mood boosters and stress relievers.
It helps manage the anxiety, gives you a sense of accomplishment.
Exactly. Combine that with maybe some simple relaxation techniques, deep breathing, mindfulness for even 5 minutes a day just to calm the internal storm.
Okay, so that's the foundation. Then comes phase two, rebuilding identity and stability. This tackles that core issue of who am I now?
Precisely. Since your old identity marker's husband, maybe primary provider, have been shaken or removed, this phase is about consciously, intentionally defining who you want to be moving forward.
Viewing this as a genuine opportunity, a blank slate.
Yes. What do you want? What excites you? Start setting goals small, achievable ones at first that are purely for yourself. Things you maybe put on the back burner for years because of marriage or career demands.
Like learning that instrument, taking that trip, joining that club.
Exactly. Learn karate, plan a solo camping trip, take a cooking class, volunteer for a cause you care about. These aren't frivolous. These short-term wins rebuild confidence. They give you positive momentum.
And to counteract that feeling of life being totally chaotic and out of control.
You need structure. Routine becomes your anchor in the storm. Establish a stable daily rhythm. It can be super simple stuff.
Right.
Make your bed every morning. Have meals at roughly the same time. Set a consistent bedtime, even if you don't feel tired. This predictability provides a sense of control when everything else feels uncertain. It's grounding.
And what about tackling that feeling of numbness, that bored to tears state we talked about?
Actively engage your brain. Learn something new. This is a powerful antidote to feeling stagnant or low in confidence.
So taking a class, picking up a challenging hobby.
Right. Anything that stretches you a bit, requires you to focus, lets you build a new skill. It proves to yourself that you can grow, you can master things, you can find fulfillment outside of that old relationship structure. It makes you feel competent and live again.
Makes sense. Okay, phase three, social and financial security. Two huge pillars, especially for the 50-plus group. Let's start with the social, breaking that isolation trap.
This requires proactive effort. Isolation is a major threat right now, so you have to actively cultivate connections.
Don't wait for people to call you.
No, reach out. Reconnect with old friends, not just to complain, but to genuinely rebuild those bonds. Lean on family if they're supportive. Explore new social avenues through those hobbies you just picked up.
And you mentioned divorce support groups, even for guys who aren't typically sharers.
Especially for them, perhaps.
Hmm.
These groups offer unique space. It's judgment-free. Everyone there gets it. Hearing other men voice similar struggles, the shame, the loneliness, the fear, it normalizes your own experience.
Makes you feel less alone, less like you're the only one feeling at this.
Exactly. It builds camaraderie and can help develop the emotional language needed to process everything. The key message here is, do not isolate yourself. Fight against it actively.
Okay, now the big one, finances. This is often the most tangled and frightening part of a gray divorce.
It really is. The first step is basic but essential. Create a detailed, realistic budget based on your new single income and expenses. Track everything. Get a clear picture of where you stand now.
But it goes way beyond just budgeting, right? Especially with retirement assets involved.
Absolutely critical. You really, really need to consult a financial advisor. And not just any advisor, find one who specializes in divorce, particularly gray divorce. They understand the specific pitfalls.
Let's get specific here. What are the key financial complexities men over 50 need to grapple with? You mentioned QDROs before.
All right, the Qualified Domestic Relations Order. This is the legal document needed to properly divide retirement accounts like 401ks, 403bs, and pensions without triggering immediate, potentially massive tax bills or penalties. Messing this up can be incredibly costly.
So you need expert help to make sure that's done right for both your assets and potentially your share of your ex's assets.
Precisely. Another huge one. Social Security.
How does that work after divorce?
If your marriage lasted 10 years or longer and you haven't remarried, once you reach age 62, you might be eligible to claim spousal benefits based on your ex-spouse's earning record, even if they've remarried. This can significantly boost your retirement income, but you need to know the rules.
That's a big deal. What about health care, if you were on your wife's plan?
That's a major financial shock for many, especially if you're under 65 and not yet eligible for Medicare. Losing coverage can happen quickly post-divorce.
So you need to figure out COBRA or marketplace plans.
Yes, and budget for those premiums, which can be very expensive. A divorce-savvy financial advisor can help you weigh the trade-offs. Maybe you negotiate for a larger share of liquid assets to cover healthcare costs, for example. It's complex.
And the legal loose ends, beyond the divorce decree itself.
Absolutely essential to tie these up. First, make sure you fully understand the final divorce agreement asset division, any spousal support details, but then immediately update your own estate plan.
Your will.
Your will, your power of attorney documents, and crucially, all beneficiary designations. Think life insurance policies, bank accounts, investment accounts, retirement funds.
Why is that so urgent?
Because if you don't change the beneficiary from your ex-spouse and something happens to you, they could legally inherit those assets regardless of the divorce. It happens more often than you'd think.
Wow, okay. Critical step. And finally, setting boundaries with the ex.
Yes, especially if communication has been strained or is likely to be ongoing, like with co-parenting. Try to establish clear, maybe even written boundaries about how, when, and why you'll communicate. This reduces future conflict and stress for everyone.
Okay, that brings us to the final phase, phase 4, co-parenting, if applicable, and the eventual prospect of dating.
Right. Even if kids are adults, navigating the post-divorce family dynamic takes intention.
The focus has to stay on the kids' well-being, right? Minimizing their stress through all this.
Always. Be intentional about spending quality time with them. Maintain routines if they're younger. Reassure them constantly that the divorce isn't their fault and that your love for them hasn't changed. Schedule regular time with adult children too, showing your commitment remains strong, independent of their mom.
And the absolute #1 rule.
Never, ever badmouth your ex-spouse in front of the children, no matter their age.
Why is that so damaging?
It forces them into an impossible loyalty conflict. It creates anxiety, confusion, and deep emotional distress for them. Ultimately, it damages your relationship with your kids far more than it hurts your ex. Keep it mature, keep it neutral when they're around.
Got it. Okay, finally, dating. After the loneliness and pain, the urge to jump back in must be strong for some guys.
Very strong. That desire to fill the void, to feel wanted again, is powerful. But rushing into dating while you're still raw is usually a recipe for disaster.
Redown relationships.
Often, yes. Or choosing partners for the wrong reasons, repeating old patterns, maybe even ending up in another unhappy situation because you haven't fully healed or figured out what you truly need now. The advice here is patience. Focus on your own healing and rebuilding first.
Become comfortable and confident being single first. Know who you are now.
Exactly. Get to a place where you're genuinely okay on your own. Then, when you do feel ready, take it slow. Listen to your intuition. Be honest with potential partners about where you are in your journey.
Dating should be about connection, not desperation.
Right. It should be about finding companionship and mutual enjoyment, not frantically trying to replace what you lost or patch up your ego. Build yourself back up first. Healthy relationships will follow when the time is right.
Okay. So we've really dug deep today into this phenomenon of gray divorce for men. We've covered the drivers, the unique male motivations, the painful identity crisis.
The silent struggles with grief and isolation, the critical financial hurdles.
But also this detailed blueprint for rebuilding, for moving from that crisis point towards genuine opportunity and growth.
Because that's the crucial reframe. This isn't just an ending. As devastating as it feels, it forces a reckoning, a chance to consciously design a second act that's truly aligned with who you are now.
You're not broken, you're being rebuilt. Maybe for something even better, more authentic. The toughest part, it seems, is shifting your mindset.
Moving from feeling defined by the marriage you lost or the roles you used to play.
To feeling empowered by the future you get to create for yourself. The unknown future.
And remember, you're not starting from scratch. You bring decades of wisdom, resilience, life experience to this. You're using that foundation to build something new, something focused on your rediscovered self.
So the final thought we want to leave you with today, the provocative question for you, our listener, is this. What is the one tangible, specific step you will take today, right now, after listening to start rediscovering that person you might have set aside years ago?
Will it be making that phone call to an old friend you've missed? Will it be searching online for that class you always thought about? Or will it be scheduling that initial consultation with a financial advisor who gets creative divorce? Or maybe finding a therapist?
That powerful journey forward, it really does begin with just one intentional step. Take it.